Hi, my name is Strahan Toljic, and I'm a product manager for geotechnical products at Bentley Systems. This presentation covers gINT and Amazon EC2. What is Amazon EC2? Amazon Elastic Compute Cloud, or Amazon EC2, presents a true virtual computing environment allowing you to use web service interfaces to launch virtual servers known as Amazon EC2 instances with a variety of operating systems. Load them with your custom application environment, manage your network's access permissions, and run your image using as many or few systems as you desire. Amazon EC2 provides resizable compute capacity in the cloud. It also changes the economics of computing by allowing you to pay only for the resources or capacity that you actually consume, like instance hours or data transfer. In order to make the cloud possible, Amazon built data centers around the world. These are North California and Virginia in North America, Ireland in Europe, Singapore and Tokyo in Asia. Let's consider gINT configuration. gINT application consists of two main parts, gINT client and the database in the backend. Data can be saved to a database via gINT client and retrieved from the database via gINT client. Currently, gINT supports two types of databases: Microsoft Access and Microsoft SQL Server. Perhaps some other databases may be considered in the future. Considering gINT and cloud, let's observe two scenarios. In first scenario, gINT client is installed on PC or laptop, while database is installed and managed in the cloud. In second scenario, both gINT client and the database are installed and managed in the cloud. For this presentation, we are going to consider scenario 1, where gINT client is installed on PC or laptop while the database is installed and managed in the cloud, Amazon EC2 to be more precise. Because I'm currently located in Zagreb, Europe, I'm going to create an Amazon EC2 instance in Ireland. Let's step through the process of creating an Amazon EC2 instance and hosting Microsoft SQL Server in Amazon Cloud. Our first step will be creating an Amazon Web Services or AWS account. AWS account can be created at the following website: aws.amazon.com/EC2, and here is where you can sign up for a new account. After you created your AWS account, you may sign in to the AWS Management Console. This is AWS Management Console. On the top of the console, you may see various services. I'm going to click on EC2. In the upper left-hand corner of the console, observe the regions. Regions are distinct geographic areas that are completely isolated from each other, for example, US or Europe. I'm going to select Ireland. Next, we will create a key pair. Public Amazon Machine Image instances have no password, and you need a public-private key pair to log into them. The half of this pair is embedded in your instance, allowing you to use the private key to log in securely without a password. After you create your own AMIs, you can choose other mechanisms to securely log in to your new instances. To learn more about key pairs, visit AWS documentation and look for the topic Getting an SSH key pair. Back to the AWS Management Console. In the left pane, observe Key Pairs link. When I click on it, the right pane turns into Key Pairs. To create a new key pair, click on the Create Key Pair button on the top of the right pane. And name your key pair. Click Create. This will download a new file to your machine. Please save this file to a safe location for a future use. In the Key Pairs pane, observe a new key pair created. Also, a new file has been downloaded to your machine. Next, we will create a security group. You need to configure security and network access on your Amazon EC2 instance via security group that acts as a firewall and controls the traffic allowed in and out of a group of instances. For each group, you add rules that govern the allowed inbound traffic to instances in the group and a separate set of rules that govern the allowed outbound traffic. To learn more about security groups, visit AWS documentation and look for the topic Security Groups. Back to the AWS Management Console. In the left pane of the console, observe Security Groups link. Click on it. The right pane turns into Security Groups. To create a new security group, click on the Create Security Group button on the top of the right pane and name your security group. And add the description to it. And then click Create. In the Security Groups pane, you can observe New Security Group. In the lower pane, we will add some inbound rules. First, we will select Remote Desktop Port to open it and click to add rule. So port 3389 will open. And then we will select MS SQL Server and create a new rule for it. Click Add Rule. This is going to open port 1433. Finally, we are going to apply rule changes. Next, you will launch an instance. To start using Amazon EC2, you will want to launch a virtual server known as an Amazon EC2 instance. An Amazon Machine Image, AMI, is a template that contains a software configuration like operating systems, application server, applications, and so on. From an AMI, you launch instances which are running copies of the AMI. You can launch multiple instances of an AMI as shown in the following figure. To learn more about these concepts, visit AWS documentation and look for the topic Introduction to Amazon EC2. Back to the AWS Management Console. This time we are going to click to EC Dashboard and launch an instance. A Request Instance wizard shows up. So first step is to choose an AMI. I'm going to scroll down and select Microsoft Windows Server 2008 R2 with a SQL Server Standard and click Select button. In this step, we have to define instance details. For instance type, I'm going to select large. The reason is that Microsoft SQL Server is not supported for the instance type micro. Click Continue. Here I'm going to keep default values, as well as here. And when we come to the Create Key Pairs, we have three options. We can choose from your existing key pairs, and we did create a key pair before, so here I'm just going to select it, then click Continue. We also configured our firewall earlier, so I'm just going to select it and click Continue. So we came to the end of the wizard. I'm just going to click Launch and click Close to this dialog box. In the AWS Management Console, I'm going to click to Instances. And you can see that this instance is pending. It's being created. With a security group, My Instance Firewall, and with a key pair name that you created before. At this very moment, the instance is running. Once Amazon EC2 instance is up and running, I can try to connect to my instance. Among other things, I can also try to retrieve my password. When I click on it, I'm getting a message that it's not available yet. So password generation and encryption can sometimes take more than 30 minutes. So basically at this point of time, in order to connect to my virtual machine, I have to wait for another 15 to 30 minutes to retrieve my password. I want to bring up one observation concerning creating an instance. It appears that being able to access newly created instance may take significantly longer, up to few hours, than advertised in the dialog box below. However, this delay seems to take an effect only when applying recently created both key pair and security group. In this case, after creating instance, I wasn't able to connect to it for longer than 4 hours. So I did a little experiment. I created 3 additional instances. One with a newly created security group and the old key pair name. One with the old security group and new key pair name. And one with the old security group and old key pair name. In these 3 cases, I was able to connect to the instances within 15 minutes as advertised. But my original instance with the new security group and the new key pair name, I wasn't able to connect to for over 4 hours. So now when I have my instance up and running properly, I can terminate the other 3 instances that I used as a test. Terminating an instance is achieved by right-clicking on it and click on the Terminate command. Soon, these 3 instances will disappear from this list. Next, you will connect to the instance to retrieve the password and download an RDP file for this instance, which will launch remote desktop connection and connect to your instance. Select the instance you want to connect to, right-click on it, and select Connect command. In the dialog box, click on Retrieve Password. In order to retrieve password, you need a private key saved in a key pair file you created earlier. Click on Choose File, select the key pair file, and then click on Decrypt Password. Now you have all login info required to connect to your instance. I'm going to save that. In addition to that, you can download RDP file for instance, which will launch remote desktop connection. At this time, I don't want to connect, so I'm going to click Cancel and close to this dialog box. But my RDP file is downloaded locally. I want to create a folder with the instance name and save my files in it. You can connect to the instance by double-clicking on RDB file. Click Connect, and then entering the appropriate password. Click Yes. And now you're connected to your instance. I'm going to log off. Alternative way to connecting to your instance is by selecting Remote Desktop Connection, entering public DNS, and clicking Connect, and then again entering the password. Next, you will log into Microsoft SQL Server installed on your instance. Before doing so, you need to start SQL Server services via SQL Server Configuration Manager. So here is your remote desktop connection to your instance. You need to go to Start, All Programs, Microsoft SQL Server 2008 R2 is obviously pre-installed on your instance. Select Configuration Tools, and then SQL Server Configuration Manager. In the left pane of the SQL Server Configuration Manager, select SQL Server Services, and in the right pane, SQL Server Item. By default, SQL Server is disabled, stopped. You need to start it. Once SQL Server services are running, you can connect to your SQL Server. To connect to SQL Server, we are going to use Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio. If you search for Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio on Google, it is going to give you a link to the Microsoft SQL Server 2008 Management Studio Express, which is free to download. So in your instance, go to Start, All Programs, Microsoft SQL Server 2000 R2 folder, and then launch SQL Server Management Studio. Under server name, enter open bracket, local, close bracket, and then use Windows Authentication. Click Connect. Now you're connected to the SQL Server running on your instance. We can see System Databases, and under Security, Logins, we are going to create a new user. Right-click on Login, select New Login, and in the Login dialog box, enter username. For example, gINT user. For gINT user, we are going to use SQL Server Authentication and enter a password. I'm going to check off Enforce Password in Expiration. Then I want to select Server Roles and check DB Creator in addition to Public. This is going to allow gINT user to create new databases, which is required when upsizing projects. Click OK, and then we can disconnect. Now we can check if our new gINT user login works correctly. I downloaded Microsoft SQL Server 2008 Management Studio Express to my machine, and now I want to try to connect to SQL Server on the instance in Ireland from my machine in Zagreb via Management Studio Express. Connect, Database Engine, enter public DNS, use SQL Server authentication, enter login gINT user, and password. So connection works. As a test, we can create a new database here. Let's call it gINT Bentley. And click OK. So here is our new database. I'm going to click to our open remote desktop connection to our instance. Connect again with the Windows authentication. Open databases. And now we can see gINT Bentley that we created from my local machine. I want to exit and log off. So let's make a summary. First, I created a new AWS account. After logging in, I created a new key pair, which serves as a temporary password. After that, I created a security group, which has a role of a firewall. Then, I launched an instance, which means I created a virtual machine with Microsoft SQL Server pre-installed. After that, I retrieved the password and established remote desktop connection. Then I started SQL Server services on the instance. Then I connected to Microsoft SQL Server, this time via Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio Express. I created Microsoft SQL Server user with a DB creator role so the gINT user can upsize projects. And then I tested connection to Microsoft SQL Server from my local machine. Setting up the instance and Microsoft SQL Server is done once and should be done exclusively by IT personnel. No gINT user should be exposed to it. gINT user, on the other hand, from the interface standpoint of view, has the same experience as if the Microsoft SQL Server was running in their company's data center. So once again, gINT user should not be exposed to any of the setting up demonstrated so far. The demo of gINT user experience follows. At this point, I don't need to be logged in to my AWS console, so I'm going to sign out. This is gINT application with gINT standard US lab project open. This is the project that I want to upsize to a Microsoft SQL Server installed on the instance in Ireland. Before proceeding, I want to run Resource Monitor side by side. So Enterprise menu, upsize current project to Enterprise. Here, I want to enter my public DNS address. I want to enter gINT user username and password. Finally, I want to click here to check my connection, and it works properly. I can also recognize my gINT Bentley database I created from Management Studio. I'm going to create a new gINT database and call it gINT Master. Click OK. Step through the regular process. So upsizing project completed. For the record, it's the GINT version 8.30.03.41. As a last step, we want to verify if GINT master database was created in SQL Server on the instance in Ireland. So let's go back to our RDP file to establish remote connection. Double click on it, connect, enter password, accept. So I want to log into SQL Server via Management Studio, connect, expand databases node, and here is our confirmation. GINT master database created by GINT from remote location. To learn more about Amazon EC2, please visit the following topics at AWS documentation at aws.amazon.com. This concludes GINT and Amazon EC2 presentation. My name is Trahan Toljak. Thanks for watching.